Namaskar friends and welcome to our YouTube channel Banking and Business Updates. In today's video we will discuss an important letter written by the Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh. This letter dated 1st January 2025 was penned by Shri Girish Chandra Arya, the National Secretary of the Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh and in charge of the financial sector. The letter is addressed to Shri Sameer Shukla, Joint Secretary in Banking Operations, Department of Financial Services, Ministry of Finance, Government of India. This letter highlights the long pending issues faced by bank pensioners. Let us take a closer look at the details of this letter. At the beginning of the letter, Shri Girish Chandra Arya extends New Year greetings to Shri Sameer Shukla on the references the meeting held on 21st December 2024. In that meeting, discussions were held regarding the issues faced by pensioners, and Shri Sameer Shukla assured that this matter would be resolved promptly. However, the letter mentions that no action has been taken on these issues so far. It highlights two critical matters that require immediate resolution. First, pension updation on the lines of the RBI. Second, review of the Ex-Gratia amount. Further in this letter, he has explained these issues in details. First issue, pension updation on the lines of RBI. In this section, Shri Girish Chandra Arya states that, as you are aware, the pension revision for bank pensioners has been pending since the 6th wage settlement. Despite being addressed in the 12th wage settlement, which concluded on 8th March 2024, the issue remains unresolved due to the IBS claim that the matter is sub judice in the Supreme Court of India. It is well known that the RBI pension schemes serve as the model for the pension schemes of bank employees. While pension updation for RBI pensioners was completed by 31st October 2017, this has yet to be implemented in public sector banks, which has become a point of dispute and dissatisfaction. In the second paragraph of this point, reference is made to the joint notes on residual issues dated 8th March 2024. According to this note, the pension regulation of 1995 stipulates that the provision for periodic pension updation should have been included within 180 days. However, the IBA has yet to take any action on this matter. Furthermore, the IBA filed an affidavit in the Supreme Court claiming that there is no provision for pension updation in the pension regulation of 1995. Shri Girish Chandra Arya has called this affidavit false, stating that the provision for pension updation does exist and that pension updates have occurred in the past. The IBA's affidavit is merely an attempt to create the impression before the Supreme Court that the unions are in agreement, but in reality, this is not true. Along with this letter, Shri Girish Chandra Arya has attached a note that includes various provisions and decisions related to the pension agreement of 29th October 1993 and the pension regulation of 1995, which have been shared for information purposes. In the next point, Shri Girish ji addresses the second issue, which is the review of Ex-Gratia amount. In this section of the letter, the issue of the Ex-Gratia amount is raised. It is mentioned that despite the lack of pension revision in the 12th bilateral agreement and the 9th joint note, which was concluded on 8th March 2024, it was agreed that an Ex-Gratia amount would be provided for pensioners. This is mentioned in clause 36, which is legally binding under the Industrial Dispute Act. According to the settlement, the Ex-Gratia amount was supposed to be reviewed in April 2024, but the IBA has yet to take any action on this. As a result, the IBA and management have violated the settlement under the ID Act, which is considered a legal offense. Finally, the letter makes the following request to the bank executives and the IBA. The Ex-Gratia amount payable in April 2024 should be immediately reviewed. A provision for pension updation should be inserted into the pension regulations, and arrangements for pension updation on the lines of RBI should be made at the earliest. It is also mentioned that the issue of pension updation is currently sub judice in the Supreme Court. However, if the matter is resolved outside of court, the Honorable Supreme Court will have no objections. Friends, along with this letter, an annexure and an appendix have been attached. The annexure highlights what the government has said and when regarding the concern of pensioners, while also explaining the ongoing struggle for pension updation in details. Additionally, supportive references have been provided in the appendix. So friends, let's now take a closer look at these documents and explore them in detail. In the opening paragraph, it is stated that pension revision is one of the most pressing issues today. In fact, calling it an explosive issue would not be an understatement. Its important relevance and urgency were highlighted and defined by none other than the Honorable Finance Minister in an interview with Business Line on 30 October 2020. Now let's take a look at what the Honorable Finance Minister said on that date as mentioned in the appendix. I want bank employees to be given their due. A lot of pensioners have been waiting for a very long time Yesterday, I had a meeting with Raj Rai of the IBA. I spoke to him too. We need bank employees to be attended to, particularly their families and the pension of retired employees. Friends, moving ahead, let's see the keynote speech delivered by the Honorable Finance Minister during the 73rd Annual General Meeting of the IBA on 10th November 2020. Here is what she said. One of them, after all, is the very particular case of being part of banks. Post-retirement, they can't be forgotten. Post-retirement, they can't be left to depend on themselves. I think it is as important to care for ex-staff as it is to care for customers. Those who have retired and are now living with their families gave their best when they were in service. I am sure many of you will eventually retire too, so we can't treat them differently. She further added, as a former defense minister, one thing I'd admire is how defense personnel always treat their families as one, whether serving or retired. The family is supported and cared for. I wish to see the same culture in banks, where all staffs and their families, whether in service or retired, are treated as one. You must speak for them and care for them. This clearly shows that the Honorable Finance Minister has recognized the seriousness and urgency of the issues faced by bank pensioners. Friends, he further wrote in the next paragraph, a similar scenario occurred during the 11th wage settlement which was concluded on 11th November 2020, right after the Honorable Finance Minister's statement. The same situation repeated during the 12th wage settlement on 8th March 2024, where the issue was deferred with the explanation that the matter is sub judice in court. However, as a form of consolation to pensioners, a small amount in the name of Ex-Gratia has been provided. As per the agreement, this amount was to be reviewed in April 2024 and annually thereafter. Yet, the review scheduled for April 2024 has not been conducted to date, which is a matter of serious concern. Friends, he further writes that despite all their efforts, pensioner concerns still remain unresolved. They have continuously tried to reach out, sending letters and emails to the President, the Prime Minister, and even the Finance Minister, but their voice seems to go unheard. Many members of Parliament have also taken up their cause, writing to the Finance Minister and raising these issues in Parliament. Yet the situation has not improved. This shows the ongoing struggle of pensioners who are just asking for their rightful benefits and recognitions. Friends, in the next part of the letter, he refers to Clause 12 of the Pension Agreement dated 29th October 1993. This agreement signed by the Indian Banks Associations on behalf of its member banks and the unions clearly states that various conditions of the pension scheme were discussed and agreed upon. One of the key points was the decision to implement all the conditions based on the RBI pension schemes. Both parties, IBA and unions, accepted that the pension scheme would follow the guideline set by RBI. Now, as per detail in Appendix, Clause 12 specifically mentions that a scheme will be negotiated and settled by 31st December 1993. This scheme would cover important aspects such as applicability, qualifying service, pension amount, payment methods, commutation of pension, family pension, updating of pension, and other general conditions. All of this was to be done in line with the existing provision of the RBI pension scheme. Friends, he further writes that the matter is now pending in the Supreme Court. The Indian Banks Association has filed an affidavit stating that there is no provision for pension updation in the Pension Regulation of 1995. The full detail of this affidavit are provided in the appendix under the heading IPA Affidavit in Supreme Court dated 24th August 2023. That there is no provision in the Pension Regulation of 1995 for any updation in the pension of bank employees and officers. Therefore, it would neither be appropriate nor financially viable for the banks to accept the request of pension updation, especially at par with central government employees. This is because the pension for bank employees is paid out of a pension fund created by the bank's contribution to the provident fund, whereas for central government employees, the pension is paid as a revenue expenditure from the government's budget allocation, not from a pension fund. Friends, according to the affidavit, the IB claims that since there is no provision for pension updation in the Pension Regulation 1995, they are not implementing any pension updates. However, this statement is false and goes against the very foundation of the pension system. It contradicts the basic principle behind pension provisions and the intent of pension regulations themselves. The concept of pension is meant to ensure that employees after their service receive a reliable source of income that keeps pace with inflation and rising living costs, which is why updation is essential. Friends, the pension scheme followed by the banks is based on the central pension rules and the RBI pension scheme. Any dispute related to the pension scheme must be resolved by referring to the central pension rules as clearly stated in clause 56 of pension regulation. This clause mentions residuary provisions. In case of doubt regarding the application of these regulations, regard may had to be corresponding provision of the Central Civil Service Rule 1972 or the Central Civil Service Rules 1981 applicable for central government employees, with such exception and modification as the bank, with the prior approval of the central government, may decide from time to time. What this means is that in both the central government and the RBI, the underlying principle is the same. Pension revision is carried out in conjunction with pay revision. This practice ensures that pension remain in line with the increased cost of living and the changes in employees' pay. The statement made by IBA that there is no provision for pension updation is incorrect. The idea of updating pension along with pay revision has always been part of the bank pension scheme right from the start. If we look at clause 35.1, which was part of the 5th pay settlement, pension revision were carried out for pensioners who retired between January 1st, 1986 and October 31st, 1987. This is clearly mentioned in the clause, which says, in respect of employees who retired between the first day of January 1986 but before the 31st day of October 1987, basic pension will be updated as per the formula given in Appendix 1st. Non-updation of pension after the 6th bipartite settlement remains a matter of controversy. Clause 35 first, under which the pensions of the retirees between January 1st, 1986 and October 31st, 1987 were updated, has been kept in the pension regulation even after the changes made in 2003. In fact, it was amended to make it more comprehensive and binding. This amendment allows for further pension updates, making it clear that pension revisions are part of the schemes. The details of this updation are mentioned in the appendix. The amended version of clause 35 first, which was officially published in the Government Gazette, states basic pension and additional pension, wherever applicable, shall be updated as per the formula given in appendix first. Apart from what we have discussed, let's talk about an important meeting that took place between the IBA and the Union on 26 March 1994. During this meeting, a draft of the pension regulation was shared, and after proper consideration, both parties agreed on it. There were discussion and consequences on several other issues, including the key topics of pension updation, which was to be aligned with the RBI's pension scheme. This discussion and agreement were recorded in the meeting minutes, which are crucial to understanding the situations. The details of the meeting are mentioned in the appendix, which is as follows. The draft small committee meeting on March 26, 1994. The draft of the pension regulation was circulated in the small committee meeting held on 26 March 1994. Let's take a look at what transpired during this meeting. In this meeting, both parties acknowledged and accepted the following condition. The formula for updating pension should be on the lines of the one given in the Reserve Bank of India scheme. Any changes to it should only be introduced after mutual agreement. Let's now talk about a meeting that took place on November 10, 1997 between the IBA and the Union. This meeting was focused on the dispute related to clause 22(4)(b) of the 1995 Bank Pension Regulations. During the discussion, it was highlighted that the RBI pension scheme was the foundation of the bank pension scheme. The interrelationships between the RBI and bank pension scheme was explained in detail. However, since there was no clause like 22(4)(b) in the RBI pension scheme, this clause was eventually removed from the 1995 Bank Pension Regulations. The detail of this are mentioned in the appendix as follows. In BPR 1995, clause 22.4b was included, which was not part of the RBI scheme. In this regard, during the meeting between IBA and the Union held on 10th November 1997, the following was discussed. Withdrawal of the strike clause in the pension scheme. The Union strongly argued that the pension settlement in the banks was based on the premise that it would follow the RBI pension scheme exactly. This was the very foundation of the pension scheme. Since there was no such clause in the RBI pension scheme, the Union felt there was no reason for it to be included in the bank pension regulations. IBA agreed with this view and promised to recommend its deletion to the government. To cover up its false claims, IB has now talked about including a provision for periodic pension updation along with wage revision in the joint note of residual issues which was signed on 8th March 2024. The purpose behind this is clear. IB want to present it to the Honorable Supreme Court and suggest that the unions who are part of pension agreement also believe there is no clause for pension updation in the pension regulations. They claim that the union have demanded the inclusion of a pension updation clause. However, this is nothing but a false document created to mislead. Friends, let's consider the actual situation here. Clause 56 of the pension regulation, which talks about residuary provisions, clearly states that if any dispute arises during the implementation of the pension, the necessary arrangement must be made to address them, with prior approval from the Reserve Bank and the Government of India. This must be done while also considering the Central Civil Service Rule of 1972 and the Central Civil Service Rule of 1981. Right now, there is a dispute regarding pension revision because the pension of bank pensioners are not being revised in relation to the central and RBI pensions. According to pension regulation, such disputes regarding pension revision can be resolved with prior approval from both the Reserve Bank and the government, which means there is a provision in place to address this issue. Let's consider this for a moment. Even if we assume, just for argument's sake, that there is no provision for pension updation in the pension regulation, it's important to note that the Finance Minister of the Government of India who must give the prior approval is herself taking the initiative for pension revision. Additionally, the pension agreement dated 29th October 1993 clearly mentions pension updation along the lines of the RBI pension schemes. In the small committee meeting held on 26 March 1994, pension updation on RBI lines was again discussed and agreed upon. Furthermore, on 10th November 1997, the IBA and the Union agreed to repeal Clause 22(4)(b) while recognizing that the RBI pension scheme is the foundation of the bank pension scheme, and since such a clause did not exist in the RBI pension regulation of 1990, it was removed from the bank pension regulations. These facts clearly shows that what is included in RBI pension scheme is accepted in the bank pension scheme, and anything that is not in the RBI scheme has been excluded from the bank pension schemes. On the same line, since the RBI pension agreement was made in 1990 and came into effect from 1st January 1986, the bank pension agreement made on 29 October 1993 also came into effect from 1st January 1986. Similarly, just like pensions were updated in RBI following the pay revision, the pension of bank pensioners who retired between 1st January 1986 and 31st October 1987 were also updated following the 5th wage agreement, which came into effect from 1st November 1987. In the agreement dated 8th March 2024, pensioners up to 31st October 2022 were granted ex-gratia payments starting from 1st November 2022. However, there was no provision for this in the pension regulation. This was done in the context that the matter of pension updation is still pending in the Supreme Court. The ex-gratia payment does not have any negative impact on the ongoing demand for pension updation. Additionally, in the joint note on residual issues signed on 8th March 2024, it was agreed that within 180 days, a decision will be made regarding the inclusion of a periodic pension updation clause along with the pay revision in the pension regulation. It's clear that the IBA is working towards paving the way for pension updation by introducing such a clause. It is really unfortunate that the IBA has not yet reviewed the ex-gratia amount to be paid from April 2024, despite the ex-gratia agreement made on 8th March 2024 and the inclusion of the pension updation provision. This delay clearly violates the agreement. Since the compromise is under the ID Act, the violation can be considered an offence under the ID Act. The IBA has not taken any step to insert the periodic pension updation provision in the pension regulation. According to the agreement, the IBA was supposed to include this provision after obtaining prior approval from the government. However, IBA has failed to take any action on this matter. He further writes that it's wrong to delay pension revision any further. The banking sector had a reliable settlement system for personal matters since 1966. While leaving pension revision unresolved for 38 years, a grave injustice has been done to pensioners. Many have been deprived of their rights and have passed away. Sadly, even the support of the Honorable Finance Minister hasn't helped. These actions by the management are damaging the government's image. Pension revision should be done as per the RBI lines as stated in the agreement. The Honorable Supreme Court has not issued any stay order on the agreement. In the case of 40 to 50% pensions for State Bank of India officers, it was decided with the permission of the Delhi High Court. Similarly, we request you to advise the management IBA to update the pension on RBI line with due notice to the Honorable Supreme Court. This would be politically correct decision, sending a senior citizen friendly message to over 7,80,000 families. It will also benefit PSBs, helping them protect their interest in case the judgment goes against the banks. Most importantly, it will restore justice to the suffering bank pensioners who have been waiting for 38 years and strengthen their faith in the Honorable Finance Minister's word from 4 years ago. Lastly, the elderly will be truly grateful to you for bringing them justice. So friends, this is the complete letter we discussed today. In this letter, Shri Girish Chandra Arya ji has explained everything in such a simple way like we would for a nursery class student. It's very sad that despite so many efforts, lakhs of bank pensioners in our country are still facing this issue. Friends, only time will tell if this letter will make a difference or not. However, friends, we share similar updates on our YouTube channels. If you want to stay informed with such updates, don't forget to subscribe to our channel today.